This is the sweet sound of success with Sue Wilhite, Profit Attraction Master. Altovise Pelzer unmutes the voice of women who are ready to speak up about the things that have kept them silent for way too long. She is an award-winning empowerment speaker and founder of the World Voice League. Altovise also hosts the Speak Easy podcast, where she empowers authors and speakers with hot topics and candid interviews. Altovise is the visionary author for the #1 best-selling book, A Stage of Their Own, More Than a Movement. She is also a contributing author to the #1 best-selling book, Speak Up, the ultimate guide to dominate in the speaking industry. World-renowned speaking legends Dr. George Fraser and Les Brown wrote the Foreword and Afterword for this book. Homelessness and molestation affected Altovise. She hit a turning point in her personal life after decades of being silent about her molestation story, even after finding out both her girls were molested. This was the catalyst for her decision to motivate women to leverage their life circumstances by learning to love and use their voice. Welcome to my show, Altovise. I have been so looking forward to this interview. It's been what, 2 years since we were together on stage?
I think so. Yeah, I think about 2 years.
Yeah, and you have just done some amazing stuff since then. I have to say, boy, go you, because the work you've done with giving women voice. I mean, I so admire that. That is gorgeous. That is amazing. So, welcome.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much, Sue. It's really been an interesting journey.
Yes.
Every bit, and listen, all of you who are listening in and watching, you are going to hear all about that journey. I am not going to hold anything back. I am Altovise Pelzer, your voice manager, and man, if I did not find my own voice, I would not be in the position I am right now to help other women find theirs.
Right? Isn't that what we're doing? Is like passing it on so that it's not just that we have our voices, but if we could teach other people to go and be their genius, it infects the whole world, right?
Exactly.
And it makes a difference.
Exactly. And that's the biggest part of it, is understanding that you do have genius. You do have something that makes you unique. You have something that makes you wise. And when you tap into that, guess what? Nobody can copy it. Nobody can steal it from you. Nobody can be you. But everyone, or maybe not even everyone, but a good number of people will want to tap into what that uniqueness is. And they'll actually pay for it too. Not in a strange way, in a legal way, guys.
No, but it's worth noting that what genius you have has value in the world. And that is something, I mean, finding one's voice is one thing, but figuring out that one has value is another. And that is one of the things that, everybody starts from this point of not believing in themselves, right? And that's kind of this really common theme, is that people think they're not worthy, and especially women. Although I've talked to a number of men who have struggled with this because their parental units have unreasonable expectations of where they're supposed to be. So it's really, really common.
Yeah, it's a struggle for many of us to charge what we're worth, to understand the value of our time, the value of our finances, the value of who we are in essence. And once we tap into that thing, man, we'll see how valuable we are, not just to ourselves, but now we're tapping into seeing how valuable we are to our families, to our spouse, our children, to the next generation, how valuable we are to our neighborhoods and communities. And I think right now we're in like this space where people are starting to realize their value, and they're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do with this? Or is this real? Like, are people really going to pay me for this information? Are they going to pay me for me to speak on a stage? Am I really that valuable? And I want you guys to know and understand, yes, you are that valuable, and then some.
Exactly. Exactly. But, you know, Altovise, you didn't always believe that yourself, right? You had what we call the ordinary, not so ordinary, um, beginning. So what was it like for you? Because that's really where, you know, a lot of other people are starting. What was that like for you?
You know, a lot of us deal with rejection. A lot deal with fear. And, you know, we talk about fear of failure and fear of success, but that's not the only fears that we deal with. Those are the main ones that people talk about. And so there was this fear of being rejected.
Mm-hmm.
And what if people will not buy my book? What if people will not sign up for my program? And that fear, I had to literally battle that fear the first time that I started putting classes out back in 2016. Now, ultimately, it worked out for my good, but in the moment, it felt horrible.
Right.
Here it is. I was building a platform online. I was on Periscope. Shout out to Periscope. I was on Blab sometimes. A moment of silence for Blab. But, you know, as an introvert, it was really me stepping outside of my comfort zone, and doing live streaming was allowing me to connect with people all over the world. And so people were following me. They were connecting. And I said, great. You know, and my coach was like, yeah, launch this class, and this is how you set it up. And so I followed all of the steps. I went by the model, and I got crickets. And it was like, well, maybe, yeah. I was like, okay, maybe I'll go, and maybe I'll do a different class. So I did a different class, and I went ahead and I put the information out there, and again, crickets. Now, this is number 2 at this point, guys. At this point, I'm watching other people be successful using the same exact model. I'm watching other people make money, and more money than what I was even charging, using the same exact model. And I'm like, why am I not getting this? What is wrong with me?
Right.
There goes that rejection.
That has got to be the most frustrating, horrible feeling ever. I mean, it makes you either want to run screaming, or, you know, go dive off a cliff somewhere.
And many people quit.
Yeah.
They quit. And I said, okay, you know what? They say third time's the charm, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna try this again for the third time. It's the third class.
Wow.
And I go ahead and put the class out there, and nothing. I actually had someone who gifted a seat to the class. Like, I couldn't even give a seat to the class away. And it was crazy. But here's the thing that really like struck me in all of that was, right after that, I had an opportunity to launch a membership community. And I was so scared, because I was like, here it is. I've launched 3 classes with nothing. I've put out money. I've put time and energy into this, and I'm not seeing the results. And so I launched this membership, and the membership, whereas the classes was me following someone else's model, the membership was me making the journey my own.
Right.
And so it was me personalizing it. My first year, maybe even, my first, I think, year or so, I talked about food in our membership. Like, it's crazy, y'all. I'm a foodie. But I talked about food. And I talked about food companies and businesses and, like the Hers company, how they, their factory burnt down. And what were the business lessons in them having to rebuild after that? Because many would quit. I talked about Double Bubble and how they had to shut down for 2 years because they didn't have access to the supplies they needed.
Right.
And this was my way of expressing it through the way that I knew how, and people loved it. So much so that it's still going on. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but almost 4 years later.
Dang. Good job. Launching a membership site is a big deal, and to keep it sustaining, that is an awesome accomplishment.
It's been crazy. And it was from me going ahead and I'm trying to launch those classes and I almost did not launch the membership because I'm like, I just tried to launch 3 classes and wasted money and stuff. I went ahead. I started out with 2 members. And guess what? I've been rolling ever since. They've stayed connected. And I have people who still say to me, the lessons that you taught in the membership, I am still using today.
There you go. Right? There's value right there. Right there. So what was the call to action? What was it that made the difference besides sheer, what my ex-mother-in-law would have called sheer cousindness?
So for me, it was tapping into my authentic self. What I found that a lot of people do when coming into the industry is they want to replicate. They get it kind of twisted, and so in their heart they want to replicate the success that someone had, but in their actions they replicate the actions that someone did. Just because you do the actions that they did does not mean you're going to have the same success.
Right.
And so it's a frustrating time because people are putting thousands and thousands of dollars out for programs, and they're going ahead and implementing these strategies, but they're not seeing success. They're not seeing anybody coming in. They're definitely not seeing the money that's being promised with the strategy. And so it's frustrating.
Right.
And so that was the call to action was, sis, get up. That's not you. That doesn't sound like you. The product doesn't look like you. It doesn't feel like you. And it wasn't until I made a space that felt like me that I started seeing success. Like when I tried to do what everybody else was doing, it was a disaster. I can't even count how much money I've wasted on that time frame of attempting to try to use the strategy that somebody else used, thinking that it was always going to work for my product, my brand, who I am. And I'll give it to you guys like this. You know how some people will say, here is the template. Here is the email template. Let's use emails. Here's the email template. Use this email template for you to be able to get thousands and thousands of dollars. And you go, great, I'm going to use this exact email template, and all I'm going to do is fill in the blanks. It doesn't work.
Because
it doesn't work.
Yours.
It's not you.
It's not the way you would say things. It's not authentic. And for people who don't believe in woo-woo, trust me, your energy comes through the emails. Your energy comes through the websites. If you are not being authentic, if you are using somebody else's template, it's not you. And it's going to show up as somebody else. And people, you just have no idea how perceptive people are at a very unconscious level. And they won't be able to identify it, but they'll go, you know what, that person is BSing me, or that person isn't authentic, or I don't trust them, or there's something wrong with this picture. Mm-hmm. And they don't know what it is. They can't tell you, but they're going to reject it.
Ooh, and you know what? And I'll give this honesty moment only because I'm talking to your audience too. A lot of people will stop opening your emails.
Yes.
And so the reason why you have such a horrible open rate, or you have such a horrible click rate for your emails, because your emails don't even sound like you.
They don't even land. People won't read them because
they won't.
Like, you know, I've already rejected this, and they won't even bother to unsubscribe.
They won't even unsubscribe.
They won't even take the energy to do that. It's such a disconnect. It's like, I'm not touching it.
Nope, not at all, y'all. And so I that was it. That was that. Yeah. That call to action was be you.
Yeah.
Be authentic.
Yeah. Right. But still being you and getting out into the world. You say you're an introvert. You're an introvert with a speaking coaching business. Yes. Which sounds like a total disconnect, but I know it's not. I'm just pointing it out. But that's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the big hairy monsters you get to deal with.
Yes. Because people think that in the speaking industry, you have to be the loudest one in the room. People think that as an author, you have to be very, aggressive, and you have to. One of those big hairy monsters that popped up was, as an author, I would see the extroverts walking around the room and selling their books.
Yep.
I'm an introvert, so I don't walk around the room.
Right. It's like walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, buy my book."
Exactly. That is such an extrovert thing. It is not an introvert thing. And it wasn't for me. But I found a way for me to sell books while at events. And it was through networking. Like, one of the things as an introvert, I hate networking events. I hated them with a passion. They made me itch. Business cards made me itch. Like, the thought of somebody handing me 300 business cards, it just made me itch. And so I would go to networking events and I would sit in a corner. And your comfort zone is your broke zone.
Right.
And so I would sit in a corner and not sell anything, not say anything. And it was a waste of time, energy, and money.
Right.
So I said, okay, what do I have to do in order for me to realize that I have to network? I have to find a way that networks with me, with not only potential clients and customers, but also with other people in the industry, people outside the industry. So what do I need to do? And so I said, okay, I have to figure out a way for me to network that's on me, introvert, 100%.
Yeah.
And that meant drawing people to me instead of me going to them.
Right.
So that meant coming in with a bright color on in an event where most people would have on like dark colors, navies and black and gray, and I come in with bright yellow.
There you go. Right.
I don't have to be the loudest person in the room, but I'm going to stand out. You're going to notice me.
Right.
For me, I'm really big on earrings. Like, I love my big earrings.
Yeah.
And so my earrings, or if someone has some nice shoes on, that's my entrant way. Like, that's my entrance right there. We can have a conversation and it move into something else. Exactly. And where I got that from was, I was on a flight going to an event, and I saw these two guys spark up a conversation over watches. Both men had on watches, and they talked the whole flight. They weren't loud or rude or anything, they weren't like over the top, but they talked the whole flight. And at the end of the flight, as everybody was getting their bags, they exchanged business cards. That's networking.
Right.
That's networking. That could have been literally $1 million connection right there, right?
Right.
You don't know what comes out of that. And so it made me sit down and say, okay, I have to look at networking from, I network every day that I go out into the world, instead of I have to be at an event to network, or I have to be in a crowd of all these people to network.
Right.
I can do it my way. And in doing so, man, it turned into a few different things. It turned into a book, because other people were saying, well, how is it that you know such and such? How did you get these people for your podcast? How did you do? And I had to give them, the tips and tricks.
Right.
And it also led to me doing trainings on it, because people were just like, okay, no, this is really a fear that many people have of going into large crowds. I don't want to go into a large crowd.
Yes. Itch is probably the lowest level of physical symptoms.
Exactly. I'm like, and now with everything that's been going on in the midst of quarantine and COVID and people have anxiety, and it is really high right now.
Yes.
I have to find ways that I can network and market myself in the smallest of crowds, even when it's just 2 people, or in a space where I don't know many people. So I do the earrings. That's one that's in my book. Another one that's in my book is what I put on my name tag.
Oh, yeah.
Because, of course, people look at your name tag and they're like, oh, wait, what does that mean?
Exactly.
That sparks up a conversation, and it puts you in a position to be able to go and network with that person, them finding out who you are, who you serve, how you serve. And that was how I was able to get past just one of those big hairy monsters, one of those challenges when it came to networking and marketing for my business and brand.
Right. And actually, networking brings me to my next topic in this, because you mentioned it a little bit in what you were talking about, but networking is one of the best places to find allies. It's not just about finding customers. Forget selling when you're at a networking event. That's not the point. The point is to create relationships and possibly find allies, which is really, I've got to say, one of the most important things for an introvert than anything else, right? Because if you get allies, they'll step into the room for you.
Exactly.
And they'll present you, and they'll do the work for you. And all you have to do is sit there and kind of smile nicely and say, exactly. Oh, thank you so much, Bill, John, Jill, Joan, for introducing me. Yes, let's talk. It makes it so much easier. But allies, mentors, helpers are really, really important for any entrepreneur. And so tell us a little bit about people who've been helpful for you and how. If you don't want to mention names, that's fine, but just talk about how people have helped.
So I'm big on service. And so a really powerful question that I always ask when I do connect with people is, how can I serve you? Mm-hmm. And it can be in the smallest capacity. It can be in a really big capacity. But serving has put me in a lane all my own, because I'm not, I'm not showing up the way everybody else is showing up. For example, a very well-known speaker, Cheryl Wood, her and I are part of Black Speakers Network. We've connected. We've spoken at the same events, and we were at an event. She heard me speak, and she was just like, "Oh my goodness, we have to do something together. I absolutely love what you're doing, and we got to stay connected." And so I'm like, "Okay, great." And I saw she was having an event coming up, and it was called SpeakerCon. And I said, wow, that's my judge, that's my genre, that's me. And so I said, well, I reached out to her and I said, how can I serve you? Like, how can I serve at your event? Like, what would you need me to help with? And so she said, oh, well, if you can, this and this. And we talked a little bit, and we found an area where she said, you know what, I would love for you to come and serve in this area. And I said, okay, great. Now, this is the thing, is that when you offer to serve with nothing in return.
Yes.
Like, without looking for there to be something. I didn't look for a check. I really just wanted to serve.
You serve from the heart.
From the heart.
Yeah.
And so when we got to the event, an amazing event, man, I absolutely loved it. We go ahead, we're doing all of this stuff, and we're at the hotel, and the Wi-Fi isn't working. Now, I'm doing the live streaming videos, and the Wi-Fi isn't working in the room.
Oh dear. Oh, nightmare.
And so it was crazy because, she has her team comes in and check in on me, and we're trying to figure things out. And I'm just like, not a problem. We're going to do X, Y, and Z, and we'll make it happen that way. And, it was to the point where the speakers who were supposed to be doing the live streaming piece were coming into the room, and they stayed in the room. Like, they didn't even go back into the main room, because it was so lively in there and so like energized, and we were engaging, and we were, motivating each other. And, she saw me a little ways through, and she was like, oh my goodness, I heard that they were trying to do this and this wasn't working. Was everything okay? And I want to make sure. I said, you're not in that room. You're in the main room.
Right.
You stay in the main room.
Right.
And she just looked and said, if I'm coming to serve, I'm coming to handle it and take care of it for me to take it off your plate, and you not have to worry about it.
Exactly.
And so when we did that, it turned into a great opportunity, a great experience. I went ahead and I put it out there for her. We ended up uploading it, and I did all of those steps. And so she was just like amazed, and she gave me a review and tagged me on her Facebook page. She was just like, even in a moment where I would have been like kind of frustrated, she said Altovise did not allow me to be frustrated. She took it on and made sure that it was hers to carry, all the way through. And that was just one of the many times, but it opened up opportunities for me to connect with some of the other women that she's connected to. And I've had some of them on as guests for my podcast. I've had some of them come and give me their stories for the blog. It's been an amazing experience, but it came from me going and showing up and being that person to say, I'm not, this is
right. Right.
I can serve you. I can go ahead and volunteer, and I don't have to be scared that you're going to take advantage of me or anything like that. I'm just coming to serve, because it always leads to something else. It's seed and harvest. It's always going to lead to a harvest.
Yep. Yeah.
When it's good ground.
Right. Yeah. And that is so important in cultivating allies and helpers, is being of service in return, and having that sort of two-way energy flow going on.
Exactly.
And you don't, it's like you said, you don't expect it. And if I could interrupt your story a little bit, it's interesting, because sometimes you serve one person and the return comes from somewhere else, right? You don't even, it seems completely random sometimes. You've put out the energy here, and here is this thing that comes in from left field, and they may not look at all related.
Exactly.
But it all comes from that place of service, that place of heart, that place of serving. I don't know how else
Put
to
it out there.
put
And
it
it
out there.
was
And
that
it
was
comes
that's
back.
been how I've connected with so many different people from, I mean, globally, all around the world,
Right.
men and women that, some of them, I haven't even met them in person, but we're connected and have been connected for years simply because I show up and I serve. I always have a heart of service when I show up,
Yeah.
and it puts you in a different lane.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of being in a different lane, lovely segue. Thank you. So in the entrepreneur's journey, what ends up happening is we go through these experiences. I mean, it's very different to try a project when somebody else is paying you. It's something that you're doing, and you try something and you fail. There's a different vibe, so to speak, than if you are doing it all yourself, and you fall and you get up and you do it again, and you fall and you get up and you do it again. And then when you succeed, I got to tell you, it's better than any drug on the planet.
Yeah.
When you've done something and somebody says, wow, that's valuable, I'm going to give you money for that, or I'm going to give you, some other thing of value for that. It's like, whoa, that just lights you up, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But it changes us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now we're different. We're not the same as other people who work a 9 to 5 or a midnight to 8 or whatever shift it is. And how do you, Altovise, take care of those interactions with people who just don't get it, that you're different?
It's interesting because um, I'm a pretty like closed lip type of person. So when I was going through the journey, I didn't share a whole lot with the ones who were closest to me at times. Like they would pull information out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was simply because the conversation is different. When you're talking to entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs know what entrepreneurs go through. Entrepreneurs know that on a regular basis, you're like contemplating, do I go back to a job or do I not? You're contemplating, what are some ways that I can make some extra money really quickly, or do I really go ahead and just put out this course? And so it was difficult. But what I found was that consistency matters,
Yeah.
because the consistency leads to success. And so as people started seeing success in different areas of my life, now it turned on something else, because now they're paying attention. And I'm going to tell you one of the most valuable things that happened to me, and I'm going to try not to cry as I talk about
Okay. Cry
one
anyway.
of the most valuable things, right, was that I would live stream. And I'm an introvert. So everybody who knows me knows I'm an introvert. And so this whole live streaming thing, they're kind of confused. What are you doing? Why are you going on there telling people your business? Why are you going on there? Why, like, what is, I don't get it. And so I had a lot of people that did not understand, that did not get it. But here's where the consistency matters. I had an aunt who was looking at me. She's like getting all of these notifications. I'm live, and she's like, what is my niece doing? What is she over there doing? I don't understand. So she would check in, she would watch it. She may share out the live. And when I published the first book, man, she was so proud of me. And but she made a statement, and the statement was, oh my goodness, I want to publish my book too. And she said, I want to publish a book and tell my story. And immediately I was like, yes, and we could do this. And she was like, wait. She said, I didn't say I wanted to publish today. She said, I didn't say I wanted to publish a book. And she started coming to my accountability community. And man, when she published that first book, it was valuable to me.
Yeah.
I didn't care if she sold 1 copy or 1,000 copies.
Right.
It was valuable because she saw the journey, and even when she did not understand the journey, she still watched and she still invested in the journey. And then it affected her and allowed her to be able to go and write her first book. Now, right now, as of today, she has 5 that she's
Yes.
okay. But it goes even further than that.
Woo.
And so she is a survivor of domestic violence. So she's gone live, she's done summits, she's spoken, she's done a lot. And just recently, I was in a different state. I was in Delaware. I live in Maryland. I was in Delaware helping to hand out food. It was an organization that hands out food, during the pandemic. They've been handing out, blessing people in such an amazing way.
Right.
And a woman walks up to me. Now, mind you, I'm outside with a mask on, and she knew who I was.
Oh, wow.
And she said, she called me by name, and she said, "Thank you." And I didn't know who she was at first, but she said, "I know your aunt. And your aunt helped me to get out of a domestic violent relationship."
Oh, yes.
And I
There
was
it is.
done. Like, my eyes was watering. I was stuck, okay? Because if I would have went by people saying, "What is she doing? This is crazy. Why, you're an introvert? Why are you online? What, you always going live? All I get these notifications." If I wouldn't have published the first book, if I wouldn't have started the membership community, because that's where my aunt came in, was the membership community. If I wouldn't have started that, she wouldn't have did her first book and started going live herself and been able to help that young lady get out of a domestic violent relationship. Like that, when I look at the intricate pieces of that and how they came together, I said, okay, I don't always have to explain what I'm doing, because everybody's not going to understand. Everybody's not even going to care. But when I keep going, when I have that consistency, I don't know who it's going to impact. I don't know who it's going to touch. Exactly. And I don't know the ripple effect that it's going to have.
Exactly. That is exactly what we were talking about right at the beginning, right? This is why we do what we do, because we don't know whose life we're going to change down the line. It could be, like you said, you help your aunt helps somebody else. We don't even know where that gal is going. Exactly. She could turn around, she could help a bunch of, and it's an ever widening, fractal. Mm-hmm. It just keeps going out.
It just keeps going out. And I was talking about this in another episode of another podcast interview I was doing. And I said, my third book was called The Ripple Effect. And it's based on a story where, after everything I had been through, and, after finding out my girls were molested, moving to a different state and all of these different things, my children and I were walking to the store, and it was a puddle. And I threw a rock into the puddle. And I said, "You see the ripples?" And they said, "Yeah, Mom, we see the ripples." I said, "Every action that you take will create ripples in your life and the lives of those attached to you." And I went and I threw in another rock in another area. And I said, even if we change what we do or do something different, it didn't stop the first set of ripples from stopping. It didn't stop them from flowing.
Right.
They had to stop and calm down on their own.
Right.
And I said, it's very valuable for you to understand that, because every time you open your mouth, every action and reaction is a ripple. It's going to start a ripple effect.
Yep.
And it was crazy because my oldest daughter was sitting in the room when I was doing the podcast interview, and her face lit up and she was just like, Mom, I remember that story. She said, oh my goodness, that's going to be my next scholarship essay.
There we go.
She said, I've been talking about, the actions, and what you've taught us about our actions, especially where we're at, and, paying attention to our surroundings. And she said, yeah, that part, I remember that. But that's what it is every book we write, it's another pebble.
Yep.
Every time we speak on the stage, it's another one. And man, we just make it bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah. So how can people use your Ripple?
So I would love for people to connect.
We'll have links at the bottom, but
right? Connect. They can go to bit.ly/World Voice Community to join the free Facebook community. I would love for you to join the conversation. It's a global network where people are coming in, podcasters, speakers, entrepreneurs, authors, CEOs, founders, magazines. Everybody's in that one community, and it's an opportunity for you to network and for you to create conversations. And then also, I would love for you to come and check out the podcast. If you go to bit.ly/Speakeasy Podcast Show, all lowercase, I would definitely love for you to come and check us out, listening to one of the episodes of how I am making sure that speakers and authors' voices around the world are becoming unmuted.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Altovise. This has been such an inspirational and heartfelt episode. This has just been amazing talking to you. Thank you for responding when I reached out and being a guest on my show. And thank you, all of our listeners, for joining the sweet sound of success. What are your dreams for your business? You know what drives me crazy? Really smart business owners denying their talents because they've been taught it has to be hard, because they've been taught that they don't deserve their gifts, that they're not worth anything. They've been taught that their gender means they can't express their genius. I'm Sue Wilhite, and I want you to have access to your genius. I want you to go out and rock the world with your genius. So I created the Call to Action Coaching Program. It's all about getting to the heart of you and what you've got to share with the world to make a profitable business that thrives and allows you to make a difference in the world. Click the link to sign up for the Call to Action Coaching Program today. Don't let your genius go unnoticed.